Everybody deals with the question of who am I and why am I here? That must be important. Look at all of the people that get involved in genealogy and want to know their ancestry. Who was my grandfather, great-grandfather? Where did I come from? And for these children who've come into foster care, whose families' rights are terminated, they need to have a sense of, I'm worth something, somebody cares, and some continuity in their lives. My name is Carol Grimm. I live here in San Marcos, and I retired in the year 2000 as an educational diagnostician. We came to Texas in 1964 and to San Marcos in 1968. My husband was a professor of English at the university, and my children all attended schools here locally. Now that I'm retired, there are times when I think I should retire again. When I used to go to work, it was get up, go to work, and then around 5 or 6, come home. But now, there's things to do with the church, there's things to do for the food bank, there's things to do for Meals on Wheels, and things to do for CASA, my most important volunteer activity. So it seems like I'm constantly in my car.
I'll see you next week because I'm driving on Mondays and Thursdays.
I mentioned CASA. That stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. We are appointed by the court to serve as the court's ears and eyes when a child is removed from their home for neglect or abuse, whether it's physical or sexual. We stay with the child until they reach a safe and permanent home. Whether their parents get their act together and the children go back home, or the children remain in foster care, it's very rewarding work. And I wanted to continue to make a difference after I retired, and CASA provided me that opportunity. I guess it started when I was a little girl and I played school with all my dolls and then with my younger sisters. But to see a child learn, or you get that smile when they've been rewarded or loved, is very rewarding to me.
We do get a lot of family history with our advocates, and then we also let them know how important it is to look at the family history on the child that they're serving. One of the things that's important for that family or for that child is their history. We look at talking about cultural history. We talk about identity, ethnicity, celebrations. So those are all things that we cover in training.
We're very lucky. CASA is very lucky to have Carol as an advocate. She's been advocating for, like I said, almost 8 years, and she's made a big difference in the child's lives, in a lot of the children's lives. A lot. It has to do with family history, and I think it's very important to the kids, to the children, because we want to make sure we keep them together, especially when you separate them. It's very difficult. They've already gone through that trauma, and then separate them and not be able to see their siblings. So that's where the advocate comes in, and I think Carol has done a good job with that.
The values I learned from my parents, from my father, in terms of the worth and value of family, I'm now pursuing as a CASA volunteer. My father was Harold Osborn. He was a doctor of osteopathy in later life, but in early life, he was quite an athlete. He went to the University of Illinois, and the track coach at that time, Harry Gill, thought that Harold Osborn had quite a talent. He was quite a jumper, but he was also an all-rounded athlete, and so Coach Gill trained him for the decathlon. And he went to the Olympics in 1924 and took a gold medal in both the decathlon and the high jump. He's the only American athlete, or athlete as far as I know, anywhere in the world who has taken a gold medal in the decathlon as well as an outside event. 1936, American record certificate, standing high jump, 5 foot 6 inches. It was officially approved at the 1936 Annual Convention of the Amateur Athletic Union of the United States, signed by Avery Brundage. It takes a lot of self-discipline to be an Olympic athlete, particularly if you're a decathlete, one who goes in for the decathlon. I think all of us were raised to, if you have a task in mind, you set a goal, you don't give up, you work towards it.
But it was a part of his temperament and personality and his value system, so I guess that became a part of us, indirectly, not directly. He didn't sit us down and give us lessons, but just observing him and the way he approached life is what we all absorbed in our own way.
Well, I said before that my father was a modest man. He did have one of those diplomas that they used to give to the athletes who participated. He had two beautiful diplomas from the 1924 Olympics, one for the high jump and one for the decathlon. Those two were hanging in his waiting room, but he never called anyone's attention to them unless they asked. The gold medals were in a case upstairs, and we found after my father passed away, we discovered his jersey that he wore and his warm-up jersey and stuff from the Olympics, but he didn't talk about it that much. As I said, he was a modest man.
My dad purchased this home. He had his office in the first two rooms on the right side of the building, or the house, and we lived in the rest. It had a full attic where my younger sisters had a clubhouse and the neighborhood kids would come. And there were boxes and things stored that, of course, curious children will get into. And that's how my younger sisters, and they shared with me, we learned about all of those things of Daddy's.
I was between 6 and 7, and he thought because I was quite a fast runner, and I could jump a little brook that went through one of the parks in our community when the little boys couldn't, that I would be a track star. He took me out to the University of Illinois track and field area, and he marked out where I should stand. And he said, well, now, Carol Jane, you're left-handed, so you'll start on this side. And he put X's where I was to land, told me how to take off, and then when to, I later learned it was kip, bring my right leg over, and then I landed face down in wet sand. Not many 7-year-old girls like to get wet sand in their nose and their mouth, and I expressed my displeasure, and he sent me to the showers. He didn't try to make me a high jumper anymore.
My father, as he grew older, became very interested in genealogy and used to travel around the South and over in Virginia, going to cemeteries to find all the Osborns. So family history was important on both sides of my family. And I think that's part of what has prompted me to become a CASA, to help these children whose family lives are interrupted, in some places ended, because the children are removed from their family's care. It's important that they have a sense of value and worth, whether it's with their adoptive family or whether it's through what they can build on their own as they're adults. And if the CASA volunteer can help them achieve that, then that makes our job all the more worthwhile. Because as I told you about that little thing, if you've been important in, the world may be better because you were important in the life of one child.
You don't help others, who will help you? You give back. And again, I think that's the way I was raised. And it's important that we reach out to one another. Don't you believe, don't you hope that when you're in that situation, there will be someone there that will reach out to you? That's my motivation.